It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com, and we're happy to have everybody back in studio today as we get ready for Kansas State this week. And the entire gang, as I said, is joining us and out at practice last night. I thought it was pretty interesting. Brent Venables has already had his press conference this week. You heard from Ted Roof and Jeff Lebby earlier. But guys, yesterday I thought it was kind of interesting. We all noticed it, but out at practice just waiting on guys to interview, and looked like the defense had some type of, I don't know how you would describe it, what you would call it, but it was a team meeting going on late after practice, and guys were taking their turns kind of talking to the group. It was almost like you felt like, well, the offense was nowhere to be found. So obviously the offense kicked the defense's ass at practice yesterday.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive guys had come and gone. We'd already talked Dylan Gabriel, so we're sort of waiting. Defense guys start filtering in, and then you start seeing Justin Broyles talk, and then you start seeing Billy Bowman talk, and you're hearing Reggie Grimes, and you're just seeing that they're not a come-to-Jesus meeting necessarily, but it whatever focus wasn't there perhaps Tuesday afternoon, making sure they get it corrected here going into Wednesday and going throughout the rest of the week.
It was certainly a heart-to-heart, and you guys had noted, because I was over talking to Dylan Gabriel yesterday, and I guess Miguel Chavis had a moment. I don't know about an expletive rant, but
he was coming to Jesus.
He was definitely yelling at him. I don't know, but I think that I'm guessing it was you're 3 games in, you aren't shit. You got a big game coming up this week.
I know you guys don't think they're any good because they just lost to Tulane.
Yeah, it was kind of
especially their offense. Yeah. You don't think is any good,
right? And it's from a point of I'm really interested to get into the Kansas State stuff this week because I don't know what's going on with Adrian Martinez. I listened to one of the post-game wrap-up shows with
you listen to Fitz's, right?
Yeah, the great Tim Fitzgerald, and basically the synopsis was if they struggle in the first half, you have to seriously think about benching Adrian Martinez because he's not the guy that they've signed up for. And, I think everybody thought that Kansas State was going to be good coming into the season. I still think that they're a pretty good football team. They just happened to play a bad game last week. And, at the end of the day, it's the best team Oklahoma's played.
Yeah.
Coming in on Saturday night.
And let's bring Josh in here, too. Josh, Adrian Martinez, OU fans had seen him a year ago, but is a Nebraska quarterback, and I think because of the closeness of that game, I think a lot of people started to think, okay, this is a pretty good quarterback, but there's a lot of people in the Big Ten that watched him play that are just like, well, that guy's the reason Nebraska's not any good.
He's so, I don't know. Part of it, I think, is me being biased because I was a big fan of Adrian out of high school. Like, I thought that was a guy that I think a lot of
Caleb
OU
Kelly's
fans forget.
quarterback.
He was almost exactly.
He was almost OU's quarterback after Cameron Rising.
Yeah, exactly. I really thought he was going to be the guy for a while there, and then OU just kind of apparently very very awarely and astutely said, no thanks. We're going to go in a different direction. So I think I kind of always I can't not view it from that lens a little bit, but. Guys, part of me is I struggle to believe that Adrian Martinez can't have a good season, a good role. But if Chris Kleiman can't come up with it, I don't know who can. Like I felt like that was perfect. Like this is going to be a great marriage. The idea of an edge trying to choose between Deuce Vaughn and Adrian Martinez, that's a nightmare that you don't want to live in. And yet they can't get anything going offensively. Against a Tulane team where we can talk about Tulane, they gave OU trouble last year in Norman. Yeah, they gave that defense trouble.
Every quarterback gave OU trouble last year. That's the thing. It's like, Casey Thompson gave OU trouble last year, and he gave them trouble for exactly one series, a week ago. So at one point you have to say, okay, well, if this defense and Brent Venables is what we think he is, they're going to handle Adrian Martinez without a problem. And maybe that's what Miguel Chavis and the defensive players got done yesterday is they're like, guys, we've got to go in and play our asses off if we're going to make him look, as normal as he should look.
The expectations are flipped compared to last week, where Nebraska's offense was so good. You're like, well, if they win 42-28, that's okay.
Some people were talking about the Pratt kid as an All-American after he played OU last year.
Now you're saying if Kansas State scores more than 14 points, what's wrong with this defense?
And I think that's a good flipping mindset, right? I mean, it feels like the Oklahoma defense has made a turn for the better. At the same time, though, I think it's almost like I was telling Todd Lisby this morning. It's like I think it's a little bit of PTSD, but I'm just waiting for that crack to finally happen.
Exactly.
And we haven't seen it through 3 games, which is obviously
that was what's so
positive.
weird about Nebraska. Is
Right.
like you were waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it didn't.
Well, but on the first drive, and I looked at Dylan Buckingham on the sidelines there, and I was like,
Yes.
That's what I'm used to.
Brent, see, here's what you got,
here
Brent.
it is.
This is what you didn't know that you know now.
Do you guys realize?
Guys, I mean, there was PTSD for real
absolutely.
on that because they switched up to a 3-down front, and I was like, oh, God. And I did. You could see me on Twitter. I'm like, this is not happening. Why are they doing this?
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, no, Brent's really good. Brent knew what he was doing here. There's clearly a plan here. So, sorry to interrupt you, Eddie, but I went through the same thing. I was like, oh, Jesus, here we go. It really was just a holy crap, we're back in this again.
It is kind of amazing. We talked to the players about this on Monday. We talked to a number of defensive guys just as far as you get to the sideline. I have the shot that I put in the Sights and Sounds. Brent gets everybody together, and it was almost kind of a calming, it's going to be okay. They were going to score at some point. Let's regroup. And then they come out and it's punt, 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 punt. Fumble, punt, 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 punt. It was amazing. It was a really good performance. 2 things. One, the Kansas State stuff. Do you guys realize what they were on 3rd and 4th down last week?
Well, I know they kept going for it.
They were 3 for 20 combined on 3rd and 4th downs. They were 1 for 5 on 4th downs and I guess whatever.
This was K-State?
Yeah, K-State.
I mean, they went for 4th down many times and never. Tulane stuffed them.
Well, if Adrian Martinez just pitches the ball to Deuce McAllister on that 4th and 1 at midfield,
the final one,
they probably pick it up. I don't know.
It was a horrible.
Neither here nor
play
there. Defensively, though, Josh, I know that you weren't on the postgame show with us, but what a performance that was up in Lincoln.
I wasn't hurt by the lack of an invite. I definitely wasn't hurt. I didn't keep score of that at all.
Eddie, I would have invited you, but then that would have been 3 people in 3 different locations, and I just,
If it makes you feel better, fine. Josh, I sat next to Eddie and couldn't be on it.
And had to listen to the whole thing, Bob. And you're only half of Eddie's side of it, which is terrifying.
He could only listen to half of it because he didn't get to hear me.
But no, guys, the thing I came away with that really, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear how you guys thought about it. I didn't think any single player had a dominant performance. I didn't think anybody was like, oh, that guy was the guy. Billy Bowman was really good, but kind of in an understated way. It wasn't, he didn't make a lot of big flashy plays, but he's just so steady. He's so important to that defense, and I think he is. I think I said it in the report card. He's one of the huge reasons this defense isn't giving up big plays. Because he is always there to clean up the mess.
Strangely enough, I believe this. Deshaun White was having his best performance as a Sooner until he got kicked out of the game.
He
100%.
Yes.
Which is it's kind of a positive moving forward though, because he's not a guy they're gonna just completely take off the field. Even though you walk out of there and you go, oh my God, Jaren Kanak, I want more. I need more. It's the Church of Kanak. But at the same time, you're right. I do think that Reggie Grimes had a great game, even though you look at the box score and you probably wouldn't think that he had this just unbelievable performance.
By the way, the defensive ends were the ones that left the field last night. After the rest of the defense left, the defense was still there. But you have to know how big this game is for those guys. They might be the biggest key to the defense of playing well.
And we should point out that
State.
R. Mason Thomas has been out out there
He was
at
out there
practice,
yesterday, yeah.
both Monday and Tuesday.
Hammy seems to be okay.
I think that was more of a precaution.
Yep.
You're okay. Because he was there. He traveled with the team. He just didn't suit
Kind
out.
of like Key Lawrence the game before.
Right. Who?
Yeah,
I thought
he
Key
made the
Lawrence had a
video
really
of
nice
the Nebraska administrators that were like, "Holy crap, those guys are a lot bigger than we are." So, I saw him in the tail end. I was like, "Oh, he was there," and then I realized you guys had tweeted something out before the game. So
I think you're right, though, Josh, in saying that there wasn't anybody that was just dominant, but there were flashes, whether it be like a Kenai Walker. I thought he made a really nice open field tackle.
wow, yeah.
Key Lawrence had a couple really nice plays. I thought, as poorly as it started for Harmon, he came back and bounced back after the opening series and played well. There's just it's almost like it's somebody else each time, which I don't know. To me, is that the sign of a growing defense when it's not just one player each time? Like somebody put up on the board looking at sacks, and I know sacks is kind of an interesting metric in that it's not the end all be all, but you look at last year and through 3 games. Do you guys know how many sacks they had last year through 3 games?
I'm going to guess 3.
Well, they had since I was doing the Isaiah Thomas show, I was compiling all the sacks.
Benito would have had enough.
They had a couple against Pratt against Tulane.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who they played next.
Western.
Oh yeah, that was so.
That doesn't count.
It doesn't count, but they had at least 2 in that. I know they had even a strip sack recover. So I'll just guess 5.
They had 13.
Wow.
13
Really?
sacks. 13 sacks through 3 games. Do you know how many they have this year?
13?
13. Which I think
Eddie's coming with some stats today.
I think on the
it's impressive.
surface, it's kind of eye-popping, but at the same time, Benito had 2.5. Isaiah Thomas had 2.5. Winfrey had 2.5. Grimes, Redmond had 1.5 each. Ellison and Co. had 1. Corey Robertson had 0.5, so he had a half sack. This year, Reggie Grimes has 4. Downs has 2.5. Stutzman has 1. Wegbu, Laulu, Redmond, White, Colden all have 1, or Mason Thomas has half. So, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like there's more guys making a difference right now, but the tackles for loss number far different. I mean,
it is.
Right.
It's astronomical.
Yes.
Reggie
Okay.
Grimes has 6. Danny Stutzman has 4.
Well, to me, yeah, that's the most impressive thing is like we said it like, okay, they lost the best part of their defense to the draft, yet they're better at tackles for loss. Like,
well, because they're tackling. Like, does it just come down?
well, they're tackling behind the line of scrimmage,
right.
which
They're
is
bringing
impressive.
guys down.
Yeah, but I mean, the quote from Bosworth is like running out there, like you tweeted it out, and look, I remember
it makes him giggle.
Makes him giggle.
I remember like there was a time when Alex Grinch's defense was swarming, like, and you were like, okay, this looks a little bit better than it has in the past. So it's not like it's all been shit since Brent left, and when Brent left, it wasn't great either. I mean, that you're coming off the Robert Griffin, game where you got toasted in the secondary. But again, that's like Brent was basically, by the time he left, he was the only one recruiting on that defense. I mean, Jackie Shipp had quit. Bobby Jack Wright was old.
Jackie Shipp wasn't hitting the recruiting trail, you're saying?
Yeah. But so, I mean, like he was building his own team without any help, basically. But yeah, I mean, just to lose those guys and to come back, it shows you more, I think, about Brent and Ted Roof and this defense and their scheme. And just, it's not even scheme to me. I mean, we all saw it when we started watching practice. Like, these guys practice really hard.
Sure.
And they demand an intensity out of the players that we've never seen.
Well, it kind of goes back into the spring and stuff that we were talking about, how it's just different. Like, you can't describe it any differently than saying that everything around the program right now is completely different. And we talked about that on the post game, just as far as like the excitement for this defense. And I don't think it speaks probably more so to the defensive side of the football and how excited everybody is when the thing that you want to talk about coming out of Lincoln is the defense. When the offense put up 49 points in
2.5.
2.5 quarters.
They stopped playing.
Two and a quarter of a quarter, basically. Like Davis Bevel's running out there with 7:11 left, and I was like, "Holy shit! This is mop-up time." And the second half just started.
Treated it like mop-up time. They ran the ball. They didn't do much offensively after
Fourth
that
and
point.
4, Barnes right up to
I was rewatching the game yesterday on YouTube when we were up here at the office, and I got to about that point in the third quarter. I was like, okay, I don't think I'm done with this. This is not what I want to watch anymore.
No, but I mean, and Bob and Josh, I mean, that's the other thing that is intriguing about this game, because I'm like, okay, what can OU get to on offense points-wise that makes you say, wow, that was really impressive? I think it's in the 30s. If they get into the 30s, that'd be like scoring, 50s against most people, I would think. But the fact that Jeff Lebby, we could see how much the Nebraska game opened up our eyes to how much he was holding back the first couple of games.
And they put up all those points, and we know Dylan wasn't at his best. And he said that Tuesday night. He knows he missed a lot of throws that didn't hurt Saturday, but you do that again against the Wildcats, and you might be in a different situation. And something's got to give in terms of Kansas State having 7 picks, Gabriel having 0. We'll see, is Gabriel better than the rest of what the Wildcats secondary has, or is KSU just a team that's been able to figure out what quarterbacks like to do and be able to pounce on it and then make this game completely different?
As far as the offensive side of the ball goes, Josh, and this was kind of, I think, the question that everybody wanted to ask. We did ask after the game, kind of hit on it on Monday and Tuesday with the players.
Eric Gray was awfully short in his answer.
Line. Well, he knew that you were standing there.
Eric Gray was awfully short with his answer.
He knew you were standing there, and he was ready to pounce. Did Wanya Morris just completely change everything? And, obviously he wasn't in for the long Dylan Gabriel run, but it did seem like once he came in, I don't know if it was just a coincidence, Bob. I think you asked McCade about this, but it seemed like everything just kind of slowed down for everybody up front, and they were opening holes on the first drive even, Josh, and you noted this on the Monday Morning Idiot. It was like, okay, he gets 6. He picks up 9. There were holes being made there, but when Wanya Morris came in, it just seemed like everything was right.
It looked, to me, it looked more physical right from the start. I mean, the offensive line in general looked better. I thought when Wanya came in, guys, it's the play I keep coming back to. That run where Marcus Major runs into the end zone Eddie, I think he was right in front of your camera, and he's like, too easy or something like that.
He was.
It was, you could tell he got there and was like, how the hell is this hole here? Guys, this is no exaggeration. Any of the 4 of us could have scored on that run. It was that basic and simple for him because of what it opened up, and a big part of it was just Wanya coming down on the guy across from him. So it was I thought it was clearly better. I wonder a little bit if it's just a matter of Tyler Guyton knows now. There's he knew the first 2 weeks almost nothing was going to get him out of that spot. For a young guy, you could see how that mentally could mess with you. It's okay if I'm not perfect or I'm not sharp here. I don't think that's what happens, but I think it's easier to stay on point when if you're wrong on this series, you're not going to be back out there in the next series. I just think that was an interesting angle. And like I said, I thought Wanya definitely made the line better.
And I don't think that McCade would actually sit there and be like, yeah, I'm better with Wanya next to me. But
chemistry.
There was something.
There was chemistry.
He played. That was the best game he's played at Oklahoma, and the first 3, obviously.
Because this is the 5 guys we thought they've been playing together since March, and then all of a sudden the wrinkle got thrown in that Wanya can't play the first two games, so they just have that cohesion. And it's not that Guyton didn't do his job well or to the best of his ability. He just didn't. They didn't have that mix yet to where those 5 guys knew how to work as a unit, where clearly it feels like this group does. We'll obviously find out Saturday, aberration against the Huskers, or are they legit? If they push around the Wildcats, we kind of have our answer.
I was almost shocked when I looked through the game notes this week to realize that Eric Gray ranks 6th in the country in yards per carry. 7.7.
He doesn't get a lot of attempts, so he's making a lot of them.
I don't know. I guess...
He might be a feature back. I don't know.
We're hedging now.
He did look good.
We're really not sure.
I thought he looked good, but then again, kind of like what you said, Josh, there were some holes being opened against that Nebraska defense that I feel confident I could pick up 3 or 4.
You said going in, that defensive line stunk.
They're awful.
Yeah, they're terrible.
They're terrible.
And they're just Eddie, you talked about it in the post game. As I went back, like in real time, it's hard to see, especially on television. I think it's probably easier for you being there, really having a feel for size, speed, those kind of things. But watching the review, God, they're slow.
Yeah.
I mean, they are. Historically slow.
This isn't a slight to Dylan Gabriel by any means, but he ran away from people. I don't think Dylan Gabriel is going to be running away from a lot of people.
I said in the idiot, he has no business making that touchdown run against almost anybody on OU's schedule. No way, no how.
There are certain angles on that run when you rewatch it. It looks like the Nebraska players are running from a fire.
Yeah.
Like they're not even running they're not trying to tackle Dylan Gabriel. They're just like, we better run in a direction to make it look like we're trying really hard.
They were running away from Braden Willis and Jalil Farouk, who were busting ass down the sidelines.
Yep.
It was the most bizarre looking thing that I've ever seen. I mean, except for like that linebacker was the only guy that was actually trying to track him down, it seemed
Reimer or whatever, 44.
Yeah.
And he was, to me, he's one of the guys who's like, you shouldn't be starting in a place like Nebraska.
Well, the only reason he was a try hard because he was the one that got juked in the first place to the point I think he fell down and then he got up and he started running after him again. But like he was the only guy that stood out on tape that looked like they were giving actual effort.
And the crazy thing is talking to Dylan after the game, and it was very obvious. Like he missed a lot of throws. I mean the screenplay to Eric Gray, if he just completes the pass, Eric Gray's probably going to score.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to a certain extent to know that, they put up 49, called the dogs off basically. They could have named a score on Saturday. And, we'll see. This Kansas State has been a team that, over the last couple times that they've played, they've given Oklahoma some problems here and there. It'll be interesting to see how Jeff Lebby matches up with them. I think they're going to want to be able to kind of do what they do and run the ball and get north-south. And if they are able to do that, it's obviously a positive. I
mean, so much to learn about everybody and everything.
Sure. And I still think, it's kind of one of those things. Like I tweeted it earlier in jest, but we can stop the Bedlam talk. Like, this is a big game. I think that, Brent Venables and those people inside the locker room get it. But I think people are going to look at that Tulane score and go, yeah, this should be a 3-4 touchdown game. When in reality, I still think Kansas State's a good football team. I know that they have problems offensively right now. They played well defensively.
Exactly. There's nothing to suggest their defense has fallen off a cliff or is going to Saturday.
Look, do not let up, folks. Stuart Mandel still picked this team to win the Big 12. His picks have been awful.
His apology is not accepted.
His apology is not accepted. It's refused.
Except for Kansas. He might be right about Kansas.
Well, he only picked them to be 3-7 or 3-8 instead of.
And I don't know if they
2-7.
If they don't get through Duke this week,
it would be 3.
They might not. They might
be 3-6 in conference.
It's going to be
3-6. Yeah, one step ahead of Texas.
Yeah, it's going to be really funny if they can't beat Duke this weekend, which is somehow a big game between two undefeated teams. That Kansas's schedule is still not the easiest thing. They could go 3-whatever, not win a game the rest of the year, and I'd still go, huh? Lance Leopold maybe should be Big 12 Coach of the Year.
By the way, we want to tell you about our great friends at primeshrimp.com. That's PRIME shrimp.com. You can get delicious shrimp delivered to your door from this New Orleans-based company. And the concept's really simple, really easy. Take a frozen pouch, drop it in boiling water, and you got a meal ready in under 10 minutes. Josh and I both had the prime shrimp. We both love it. I personally love the French Quarter Alfredo. The garlic herb butter is very good as well. If you're more of a Cajun guy, Louisiana shrimp boil is there. The signature seasoned is there for you, but there's no prep, no mess, no fuss. Ready in just a few minutes. And for a limited time, use your code SoonerScoop. You can get $20 off your first order, and it's a money-back guarantee. If you don't absolutely love this shrimp, which you will, you will get your money back. So we're proud to partner with Prime Shrimp. That's PRIME shrimp.com. Want to bring you guys some delicious, easy-to-cook shrimp. If you haven't tried it yet, you got to go try it. PrimeShrimp.com. Use that code SoonerScoop. Get $20 off your first order. And, hey, if you're a dude, the wife ain't home, that's Josh's go-to. The Prime Shrimp. I don't have a wife. It's a very sad situation, I know. People tell me on Twitter all the time, you loser, you have no family. And that's true. But I make it all the time as well. And I did try the signature the other day, and I'm coming around more to the Cajun style. So primeshrimp.com. Go check them out. Thanks for being a great sponsor, Prime Shrimp of the Unofficial 40 podcast. And by the way, we didn't even mention Mickey Joseph fired his defensive coordinator the day after the OU game.
Which I think it probably says everything about the Nebraska situation when I saw like the name and I was like, who's that?
Yeah.
Oh, he's the defense coordinator.
I'm going to go on record. I'm going to say Kansas has 6 wins before they play Texas.
Ooh.
Like, I think they could win 7 games.
I mean,
pretty conceivably.
I don't think they're going to make it, but my God, what if you could get Kansas versus Nebraska in a bowl game? Kansas's chance to just give back for all that they've taken over the years from Nebraska.
I mean,
guys, have you looked at Nebraska's schedule? There's a very real world where they're 1-11.
There's not a win left on the schedule.
They're going to get destroyed. It's bad.
It's amazing to me that they've fallen this far. I mean, I thought they'd fallen far.
Seeing it in person, there really is like an element because 90,000 people at 7-0. That place was bumping. Yes. Like it was that was a fun college football atmosphere.
Until it wasn't.
Even when it was 42-7, I told Dylan, I was like, I can't believe there's this many people still here, and they're like cheering. It's not like a sarcastic cheer. They were like
even Purdy's touchdown. They were cheering.
Like they're a little bit of a cult in a way. It's just like I genuinely feel bad for Nebraska fans to have gone through what they have over the last decade or however long it's been because, man, they're bad. It's a bad football team. But it's kind of like we said on the post game, it wasn't about beating the shit out of a bad football team. It was how Oklahoma did it. That was a dominant performance and something that, frankly, this program hasn't done in a while where you walk in and you just kind of impose your will on somebody.
Finally start closing the book on 2021, waiting for – because the same group of personnel for the most part, and they're all those one-score games that we joked about or got mad about last year, they're a thing of the past.
Yeah, and like I told Kerry after the game, it's like the 2021 edition of Oklahoma – They still win the game up there because they're a better football team. But
38-28, that's 45-35.
It's a game midway through the third quarter that you're saying you need to make some plays to get off the field. As sad as it may be. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Nebraska really is that bad. But
they were last year and they couldn't do anything with them.
That's a fact.
And the other thing that so far Brent Venables has erased is that fear of whatever it is on third down that the other team is going to convert. That's where Kansas State has always been a team that just kills you. Is like when they're like you limit them and you get them into third and 8. Like 3rd and 8 for Kansas State usually is like 3rd and 20 for most people. Yeah. But then we would see OU play Kansas State and they would convert not just one but like 3 times on a drive. They would convert 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10. Like
how many times have they been in like that 3rd and 3 and you're just like, well,
start over. Skylar Thompson's going to get it.
That's what I'll be looking for. I mean, and that's the thing like that shows you when the defense just wasn't working right is when that would happen repeatedly. And so far we haven't seen that from this defense.
Well, and the other thing that Bob we talked about it and it kind of became like the big talking point at Brent Venables' press conference on Tuesday was just like you look back at that 2020 game and the game flipped upside down when they blocked the punt. And there is so much focus right now on what Oklahoma's doing from a special team standpoint. I mean, the thing that Todd threw out there about Marvin Mims' first punt return put him past his total yards for the entire season entire season last year. That's insane. I don't understand how that's happened, and I put it out there this morning. Last time OU returned a punt, do you know what it is for a touchdown?
Yeah, because I saw you, D.D. Westbrook.
I do.
D.D. Westbrook,
I saw your
2016.
tweet. That's
Kansas.
the reason.
And the kickoff is 2016, Joe Mixon. They're going to return a punt at some
That
point
he actually
this year.
dropped at the 1.
That he technically dropped at the 1, yes.
I mean,
it's just
Bob, let someone have some good moment from that game, okay?
The inattention just to special teams in general is just, it's not surprising because I knew that it was bad, but when you put like numbers next to it, it's just like how as many times as we've seen a punt change a game, whether it be Jalen Saunders up in Stillwater or wherever. Justin Brown had one, I believe, against Oklahoma State in Norman against OSU.
it was the Jinx running back Alex
Ross
I mean,
had
his
one.
kickoff returns.
Kickoff
I mean,
against Texas and again in
Like,
Bedlam.
I just don't understand how
Guys,
you
think
just
about the
don't
fake
do
field
it.
goal in Stillwater.
Sure.
Like there's been so many huge special teams played.
By the way, I watched the USC Fresno State game,
We hate watched it as
We had to turn
as
it off.
far as we could.
but it's the same shit. They're fair
Yeah.
catching everything.
They've
Punts, kickoffs. Lincoln Riley does not. I'm sorry, I said the name. He does not want anyone to with his offense as possessions.
OU has forced 18 punts this year. USC's forced 8, and they've returned the 8 punts for 3 yards.
That's my thing. Like, okay, we all acknowledge, and it's absolutely fair. Alex Grinch's defense, they do all this stuff to be a turnover-prone defense. The run they are on is not sustainable. Like, that's not a thing that will continue. And against a really well-coached team this week, that's going to be really interesting. I'm not doing it again. I kind of picked against them with Stanford. I didn't pick against them, but I thought Stanford had more of a chance than they did. But if Stanford doesn't turn the ball over in the red zone, I might have ended up right on that. Like, there was – you can't live like that. You have to play good fundamental defense at some point, and they don't. They don't tackle well. Like, and it's so funny to hear, like, you keep hearing national people talk about it. Like, you know, I've got some questions about this USC defense. It's not the USC defense. This is the OU defense. This is the same thing you've seen for years, and you ripped OU and rightly ripped OU about. And now you're going to act like, I don't know what to make of this USC. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. In the same way that you know what to make of the USC offense. It's fucking great. Like, they score a ton of points. It's not magic. Like, there is a reason one is good and one is not, because it's the same entities in so many key areas that existed in Norman.
I thought it was funny that I saw Ryan Abraham wrote an article this week, or he retweeted an article talking about how big plays have been a big issue defensively for USC through 3 games. OU in the game notes this week has a stat that OU's given up 1 play over 30 yards this year. There's only 2 teams in the country that have not given up a play over 30 yards, and it's Iowa, and ironically enough, it's Tulane, the other team. So, I mean, big plays have not been, outside of maybe the first series against Nebraska, big plays haven't been
Was
a
the
thing.
Palmer touchdown 30 yards?
I think it was just inside.
I
I
thought
want to say it was
just
like
inside,
26
too.
or something.
It was in the 20s, yeah.
I can't remember.
By the way,
what
are
30-yard
you
play is.
are you a bookie?
Am I a bookie?
You
No,
have
but
so many stats
I
today.
use a bookie, though.
You have so many stats today. I'm wondering if you're not taking over the gambling,
No,
in Oklahoma
wish.
City.
I wish. No, I don't know. I was just looking at the game notes.
You're like Robert De Niro in Casino.
There are numbers running through my head, but it's mostly about how much I'm down.
Going back to special teams, I mean, that's why I think people love what Brent said yesterday. How are you ultra aggressive on offense and defense, but then wouldn't keep that mindset? And that's obviously something OU fans been banging their head against the wall for the last 2-3 years.
And we said it at the time. I mean, I think that the hire of Jay Nunez, just as a special teams analyst, I don't know how that equates to wins or losses or anything like that, but I put it in like the little social teaser that we used. He's all over the place on the sidelines, whether it be in Brent's ear on 3rd down, like preparing him, if they force a punt or if they are going to have to punt, about different things that they need to be doing. And, I think that plays. It goes a long way at the end of the day. So it's a positive. The Zach Schmidt missed field goal, probably the biggest no-no right now. I can live with that. We'll give him a free pass there. He's going to go to confession on Wednesday, and we'll be good with
Catholic boy?
it. He's a McGinnis kid.
That's right.
McGinnis kid, yep.
And they're not like Notre Dame. Only Catholics really go to McGinnis.
You don't have to be.
But why else would you go?
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Sorry, Gabe.
You're going to hear about that one.
I mean, no, I didn't mean that as a negative. Just saying, it's a lot of masses to make it through.
Yeah, it's a lot of getting up and down out of the pew if you're not used to it.
I avoid as many masses as possible. That's one of my number one
there was some type
things
of
in life.
Catholic event going on. I thought it was Catholic, either that or Episcopalian.
It felt like it. It was just an old people convention.
Up in Omaha, but yeah, it was.
Eddie, at this point, I just assume you say things incorrectly on purpose. Like I just assume that was a purposeful thing.
Is it Episcopalian?
Yes, you got it. You nailed it.
Yes,
Got it.
Crushed it.
Now try
Feel good about it.
Presbyterian.
Presbyterian, I can say that. What's that?
I don't know that you did.
What's the thing down in Waco? Baptist.
God,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I don't think that what's his name? Who blew up? Who burned everybody?
David
alive?
Koresh.
I don't think David Koresh. He had his own religion. I think he wasn't.
Well, he
wasn't
attempting
Baptist.
to. He was attempting to.
He was a Branch Davidian.
Branch Davidian. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I read way too. I read a lot of like. I don't know. Can you call something that recent history? Like I read stuff like that.
Josh
I've
reads
read like accounts from like the agents that were on hand. Like I love that kind of crap.
You read like Tom Clancy fan fiction around the Branch Davidians.
Oh,
and how they stormed from the inside, and it was actually an inside job. And
they were heroes.
Yeah,
I have heard that. It was the feds.
Well, the thing. Well, I don't want to get into it. There was plenty of.
Yeah, let's not dig that hole.
Yeah. Bob is trying to help us. He's waving us off. He's like, "Stop."
Bob's leaving the room. He's like, I want it on record. I was not here. That's why Bob wants us to go to YouTube. He's like, that way people know when I'm not part of something.
So, anyway, I think Kansas State coming up. Looking forward to it.
I'm excited. I'm still excited about it. I mean, 7:00 kickoff. It's what everybody wants.
I didn't mean to say that people weren't excited. I just meant, kind of wrapping it up. But I mean, you didn't. Some of the players were asked yesterday about, it is 7:00 start, so it's going to be. I mean, it's getting dark about 7:30 right now. Unfortunately, you won't get to have like the intro being like. Completely dark with the lights. And I'm sure they're planning on something special there, like when the players come out and the lights are. But it's going to be cool because I think the fans that were there last game are going to be jacked for another night game to see how much better it gets with the lights and the blinking and the seizures and all that.
There's no doubt that it was a 30-point game. That was one of the best atmospheres I've seen at the stadium in a long, long time. I can't wait to see what it's like on Saturday.
Well, McKay Tyler said like it's the best environment he's ever been in.
Yep.
In a football game.
Oregon. Yep.
Yeah. Autzen.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've been to a game at Oregon, and the players, there's something about that stadium, like when you're down in it, and this was before you.
Yeah, I didn't go up there.
I'm looking at Eddie.
Colin Hoover went and smoked a victory cigarette on the back porch at the Fiji house, and then all hell broke loose up there.
It's his fault.
Yeah, it is his fault.
Yeah, but like the players said that was one of the most intense environments that they'd ever been in. So there must be something about it being down on the field, because in the press box I didn't really feel it. I wasn't like, whoa, this place is amazing. It's like the players though say that. I remember OU players back in the day saying like Oregon was one of the best atmospheres.
That was like that new age too. I don't know about like technology or anything, but when Oregon started coming on at the beginning of Autzen Stadium, and there was this lore, they had won all those games in a row. Mm-hmm. That was like one of the first places that I truly remember, and maybe this was just the first time that they brought it out. Like somebody, I can't remember if it was like Lynn Swan or somebody, like had like the decibel level meter on the sidelines, and it's like, this place is rocking. And it might have been like one of those Thursday night games, because it seemed like they went up there all the time on ESPN. But I'm excited. It's going to be a good atmosphere Saturday night, and it shouldn't be as miserable as it's been here in Oklahoma over the last couple of days.
It's certainly not going to be like that Halloween night game that they had against Kansas State when they actually won. Because that was like a miserable night, and you could tell like a lot of people didn't show up. Like the south end zone wasn't even full that night, and I thought it was such a weird deal. And I believe that was also the game where the guy called in on the Stoop Show that ended call-ins.
We showed up, but you didn't?
Yes.
It's one of the greatest moments in live television history.
Want to know about player participation versus fan participation.
It's one of the great moments. And
it's still on the Sooner Scoop YouTube channel.
Oh, my God. That's so great.
I'm so mad. But yeah, you know
Toby's awkwardness
who was
makes it the
responsible
best.
too? Who enabled Bob to cut off callers?
Who?
You won't believe it when I tell you.
Brent?
No.
Who?
Tommy Tuberville.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he found out that he stopped doing his show, right? That's right. I forgot about that. Tommy Tuberville, still blocked. I'm still blocked by Tommy Tuberville.
Josh, I know you hit us up and let us know earlier, but no officials going on this weekend in Norman?
No, there were some rumors early in the week that maybe Tassili Akana might move his up from the October 15th weekend. But, guys, we keep touching on it. I keep finding names for that weekend on the 15th against Kansas. So, clearly, OU is putting some eggs in that basket. You know, we touched on the reasons why last week. But just kind of interesting. It continues to kind of be like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But it makes some sense, and honestly, the way Kansas is playing works out pretty well for Oklahoma. Like, it's not just nobody's going to care game. It's like, hey, Kansas is good. Let's go see this miracle. It may not come again for 30 years. So, you know, like it's kind of it'll be interesting to watch. But this weekend, lot of big time unofficials, and I mean really a heavy 2024, 2025 feeling. I think between Lee Summit North in the Kansas City area and Mater Dei, the obviously national powerhouse, it's like 60% of the visitor list. Like there's a ton of guys coming from those two schools, and almost all of them have multiple Power 5 offers. It's a good week. Just bringing those two schools in, you're doing pretty well.
I would imagine this is like Jeremiah Curdell's time to shine. It's like, hey, you don't have to get ready for the game. Obviously, you're helping coaching, but you can take your Mater Dei brothers around and show them around town.
It amazes me because somebody asked me, like, OU's never gotten a guy from Mater Dei. I'm like, well, it's just the one, but he's on staff, so it's not all bad.
I love the testimony of not playing football and deciding to still stay there.
Sure.
Yep. That's you can almost guarantee that will come up at some point or another. But, yeah, there are like I said, and then you throw in, I mean, there's three guys coming in from Lovejoy in the Dallas area, led by Peyton Pierce, a guy that I actually put in an OU forecast for earlier this week, big-time 2024 linebacker that I think, you know, Kerry, I mean, and Eddie and Bob, you'll remember him as a player, but Kerry can probably remember being out there at OU camps watching this guy. He is a ringer for Ryan Reynolds. Like, it's uncanny when I watch him on tape. That's the guy I see. And I realize he's a white linebacker,
yes.
Like,
take them all.
Yeah. I mean, like, I get this, the lame jokes that will be thrown at me, and I get them. I deserve them. That's fine. But, no, it's a good list. I mean, they really do. You know, like I said, Peyton Pierce, Williams Nwaneri, I think is how you said it. He's told me twice, and I can't ever get it right. Big defensive end, that is the teammate of Caden Green, Lee Summit North guys. And then 2025.
He showed out at the camp in June. Got the offer.
I mean, that's when he earned it. Yeah, he went to camp and earned it. Yeah, huge kid. You know, a guy that you guys saw recently, Grady Adamson, is expected to be there this weekend. So, I mean, there are, 7.
Jaden Nickens.
There are 10 Rivals 100 guys in the 2024-2025 class that will be there this weekend. That's a great start. That's what you're looking for.
Going back to last weekend, where'd you go? What's your thoughts?
It was, and now you're going to put me on the spot, and I've got to actually sit here and think about where did I go?
Hicks
on Thursday.
Yeah. Thursday night, went and saw David Hicks. Had a chance to talk with him and his dad after the game. Talking to them talking to some A&M people that were there. There were several A&M outlets that were there covering the game, and I think everybody feels pretty much the same. Right now, this is OU's race to lose. I mean, they've really done an outstanding job, and that was from A&M people that knew he had been at A&M for the Appalachian State game, which, I know people will say, oh, well, they lost him there. Kids don't decide like that. That's not really why that's not the stuff that goes into that. Now, if he'd have watched him lose again when he went back to Miami, okay, maybe then you start seeing a pattern and a problem, and okay. But I still don't think that affects anything. There's a possibility David will be in Norman this weekend. I've talked to his dad a little bit this week, kind of just waiting to see what comes of that, but there's a few things they're working around. But there's a possibility he'll be there. So, and that would be his first trip since the party at the Palace when really all the rumors and momentum for OU started to build.
It just seems like it's every week we're talking about there's a chance David Hicks might be here. Like, it never materializes.
When you have a night game, there's always a chance. You can always make that trip.
At some point, do you ever say to yourself, like, okay, well, he keeps saying he's going to try and be there, or
we know his official is Bedlam.
Yeah, so
you get him at least one more time.
But I mean, if it really is the favorite, you think he's going to show up one of these times at least.
Yeah, the issue, they have some. His mother and father have some legitimate parenting conflicts, like where he has a younger brother who often plays games on Saturday mornings.
Okay.
That makes it really tough to get up and see unless mom stays behind or dad stays behind or whatever they're going to do. So they run into some problems, and that's what they've got again this weekend. And I think there is that feeling of like, okay, we need to get up there, because I know Dad hasn't been up there. Dad wasn't on that trip when he came to the party at the Palace. So I think there is a desire to get up there. I know his dad and Todd Bates have a really good relationship. So there's several interesting things at play.
Who was it that's parents
went? I still love that.
Who was it that's parents went, but the player didn't go?
Stone.
Oh, yeah. That's
David Stone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I put something up on the board chat. There was a question about it, and I kind of got into talking about where OU is in defensive line recruiting. And, once they lost Jordan Renaud, what's the next answer? Guys, I mean, Tassili is the obvious replacement for Jordan Renaud. And, I mean, don't misunderstand that. Tassili is a top 100 player in the country. Actually, on Rivals is rated ahead of Jordan Renaud and has been a focus since Brent Venables arrived. So, don't make it to sound – I don't mean to make that to sound like he's a plan B. That's not what I mean. I just mean –
You're saying he was better all along.
Yes. OU is still
You're
in place, so
that?
Clearly he's better. Clearly,
are
he's
you
better.
listening to what I'm saying, or are you like me and Eddie and checking out usually, during the podcast?
No, I'm being entirely sarcastic and just leaning into it. Yeah. So
that's right up there with bursting my bubble like Eddie's 2023 SEC schedule he released yesterday.
I missed this, but I'm upset about it now.
But he really got Jared Followell.
I said the old me would not do this, but here's OU's 2023 SEC schedule, and then I just made up home and away games.
Jared immediately texted me like, "What?" Because you put that OU was playing at Vanderbilt, and all he saw was OU was playing in Nashville in 2023. So he immediately thought it was true without even the part of his brain that said this is Eddie, don't take it seriously, completely shut off.
No one's talked about this.
Yes.
I will say I watched some of that show and I made it about 5 minutes. I like Peter Burns.
The SEC schedule release.
But when they went to Booger McFarland to start breaking down week 2, and it was mentioned that
when you're not even in week 5 yet for 2022.
A lot of teams haven't even played an SEC game yet, and they started saying this is a revenge game. I was like, well, they haven't even played in 2023 or 2022. Anyways, it was quite a brain meld is what it was. I don't know. It was a lot. But
so anyway, back to Jordan.
But the thing about the defensive line recruiting, there is a sense though, Josh, that it's almost like, but Todd Bates. It just feels like because of his presence in Norman, you automatically have some type of fighter's chance to at least have some interest or have some real intent in getting somebody back to campus.
Guys, I'm still not giving up on Jordan Renaud. I'm not saying that story's closed because of Todd Bates, Miguel. Guys, they're really good. And I keep trying to hit on it because it was something I talked about a lot early on, that there were a lot of questions about Jay Valai amongst, some of the Alabama and Texas beat guys I've dealt with. Guys, all I've seen him do is land players and be actively involved, and people mention him as a guy they really like and really respect. I mean, it's not over. I'm just going to, if OU wants to keep that door open, it wouldn't shock me at all. And how different is it? Guys, I wouldn't give up on OU against Alabama for a defensive lineman until the last 2 hours. That's not a world I've lived in 10 years. That it's just been, Alabama's involved, OU's out. That was the end of it. It was if he's a take for Alabama, OU's not getting him unless there was some very unique circumstance. So it is. I mean, Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis and that staff, they have just changed the way you look at things. Todd Bates, we look at what A&M did last year. The fact that David Hicks could go anywhere. I yelled Todd Bates and I meant to yell David Hicks. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know why that happened. Sorry. I'm apparently not firing on all gears. But they with David, I mean, he could go anywhere. And I think OU is the clear leader by anyone's measurement. And I think that is, it says a lot. I know we've said it over and over again. And I think part of it, we keep falling into these conversations because OU cleaned up so much shop in the summer. We don't have a lot of recruits in 2023 to talk about. There's not a lot of storylines happening because there's already such, and this is only going to benefit OU because they can start pivoting to 2024 like they're doing this weekend with all these guys they're bringing in. And I touched on it a little earlier. Guys, this defensive line class, as good as it can be, there's a possibility that 2024 stands up right next to it with guys like David Stone, Justin Scott, Zadavian Sims, Williams Nwaneri that we mentioned earlier. You go down the list, there are so many big-time guys that OU has already had on campus at least once, if not multiple times. And, so I think, and that's where people keep asking, when does OU get to Clemson's level defensively? That's how you do it. It's not, there's one really good class and okay, now we just kind of, add guys when it fits. No, you've got to have depth. You've got to be able to, Deshaun White gets ejected and you throw in a freak of nature and just let him run all over the field. That's what it's got to be. You've got to have guys for when things happen or things aren't right that you can just roll another body out there.
Can you imagine, if Jaron Kanek hadn't been on the team, who they rolling out there?
Jake?
Harrington.
Justin Harrington. Oh, Justin Harrington.
Oh, Harrington, yeah.
Idiot. Which?
Well, Kanek's not there if Harrington's not. I mean, if Kanak's not there, Harrington's not there because is it Kanek? Mm-hmm. I want to say Kanak. I may go Eddie here.
Have a little respect for the man's name.
Here, I am a founding member of that church, so I'll have none of this.
Well, yeah, if you're a founding member of the church, you got to know how to say the church that's named after.
I mean, maybe Eddie's firing out
that's
Episcopalian, whatever.
He said it right. You got to give him credit when he does it right.
I got it right. It took a couple tries.
Yeah. Okay, tell me again. I swore he told me it was Kanak. Okay.
Jaron Kanek.
Okay.
No, I heard Jonah Laulu say Kanak on Saturday. They call him Kanaks because he's from Kansas.
Well, shit.
Okay.
Damn
so
it.
it's like Kanek with an A?
Hold on. Go get the media guide. The media guide is sitting on the conference room table.
No,
Let's look it up or go online.
On Sooner Sports.
All right.
Toby does
everyone's going.
There.
Everyone's going.
Who's got the fastest internet? Let's do some great radio or great pod here. I'm there. Okay, clicking on the link.
Opening the box that we did a couple years ago.
All right, let's see here. No.
I think I've heard media personalities have said it two different ways.
How is it not included here? It's not on his bio.
It's not phonetically spelled.
Then look for Toby Rowland when he's saying something.
Yeah, we'd have to find that. While we're looking for that, Josh, you did.
You did go somewhere Friday.
You did go somewhere Friday, and it was a 2023 commit against, ironically enough, a 2024 target in Nigel Smith and then Samuel Omosigo.
Oh, nicely done, Eddie. Yeah, that's really that was. I mean, maybe if you wanted to get nitpicky, like just the wrong emphasis a little bit, but I don't even think Samuel will even.
I think that's a fun. It's a fun name to spell out. I finally got a Wegbu, spelling wise.
Okay. I was like, you still don't say it right, but okay. Go with the rest.
Spelling wise, I have fun spelling that one out, but I can do Omosigo. Yeah.
Oh, see, you needed the first. The first one was a dry run. Now you were ready that time. That well done. So I had a chance to see Samuel Crandall. His high school went up to play Melissa, which is, for those that don't know, a little up I-75, kind of north of Allen and Frisco and up in that area. So there, for those that travel that road, it's right by a Buc-ee's. So that can be an easy little way to know that you're passing Nigel Smith. But go up there. Melissa, who has a lot of expectations, started off 1-2, kind of had not a rocky start, but just played a really tough schedule. They played a couple of really good games, couple of, state championship caliber teams right off the bat. So, Samuel had a really nice night. I mean, very active, very involved. His team was just overmatched. Like I said, Melissa's a very good team, going to probably make a deep playoff run, got a lot of Division I talent. And Nigel, like I said, is one of those guys, kind of had a quiet night. I think it was clear that Crandall was trying to get the ball out really fast, and on a lot of occasions was throwing it to Samuel Omosigo, just trying to throw him some jump balls down the field. And he had some success. There were some moments he made some plays. And with Samuel at linebacker, there's still a lot of work to be done. He's very raw. Kind of, you guys were talking, and I thought I mentioned it in one of the breakdowns we did with Jaron Canick. Yes, yeah. God, now I'm really second guessing myself.
You're correct. We have found the media guide. It's Canick.
Okay,
like CAN capitalized, then ICK small. So it's Canick.
Canick. Okay, good. All right. So
Jaron Canick.
You guys win. You were right. All right. But, Jaron had talked about there being, kind of a mental transformation when he went from being largely an offensive guy in high school to having to learn to be a defensive guy. That's what you're seeing with Samuel Omosigo. It's the same deal. He's super athletic, can do all these amazing things, but on defense, he's just kind of getting by on, like, I'm really talented and kind of playing ball that way. He hesitates. You can tell he's thinking. It's not instinctual or natural for him yet. And so we need some time. But again, you talk about a guy that looks the part. He's put on some good weight even since I saw him at his commitment back in the summer. He's going to be a really good player. I mean, it's one of those things. It's crazy now, knowing under this new defensive, regime. I'm like, he'll turn out. Barring injury, he's going to be a good player. I don't know if he's going to be great or whatever, but there's almost no chance of him not being a quality college football player. So we'll see where it goes from there. But like I said, 6'2", 205, and can run. You can work with that. I mean, there's a lot of, like Keenan Clayton vibes there. That's kind of who I would. There's some comp there with him.
We mentioned double verification for Mike Alk of Canick.
Okay, beautiful.
Yes, I texted Mike.
He's the one that said Canick yesterday. I'm not going to name names of someone that said Kanak before. We're just going to let it go.
We're just going to let it only
Some of the
be
players
me. Thanks, Bob.
are wrong, but they're very large people, so we'll just let it go. Yes.
So, Josh, you mentioned not a lot with 2023. So, did that make Malachi Coleman for what me and Eddie saw last weekend? Did that just kind of amplify that type of trip?
Yeah, I mean, it does. Like I said, I mean, there is a conversation I'm having of going back and seeing David Hicks again this Friday. Like that's how kind of shallow the water is at this point. But for the record, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. It's kind of a backup plan for another game I'm working on. But there's just a lot. There's so little. As far as OU spots, because they have a chance. They can do a couple things here where I think they're going to land, 3, 4, maybe even 5 commitments before signing day. And then you can turn around. And if maybe they miss one of those guys, and I think there's 6 or 7, maybe even 8 valid targets right now. I actually need to put together something where we so people can just kind of reference it and kind of have a point to go back to on those guys. Because I don't think we're going to have the big, we got so used to like about mid-November me doing that big signing day story where and I would just kind of update it as we went. There's not going to be that. Like right now feels like November to December. Like this is going to be OU's last big run, and maybe there's a couple of guys around signing day that everybody's waiting on. But it's just going to be very different than what OU fans are used to because the work is largely done for 2023. So, like I said, Malachi is going to be interesting. Obviously, we're now, a month and a day? I think he's October 22nd is if I remember that right. Is his announcement date. So there's plenty that's going to happen. I mean, obviously there's lots of rumors about David Hicks deciding in October. I've heard that from a few more sources over the last week. So this is going to be an interesting couple of months, even if it's not quite as frequent as what we saw in June and July. I guess July and August.
Somebody, I don't know if one of you guys sent out the link for, I don't know, like recent David Hicks film. And I sat down and started watching. And it's really the first time I've watched it. But, like, that dude, I haven't seen a guy that, like, on some plays when he's on the edge, he looks like Micah Parsons. Like, he's that fluid. There's other plays where it's kind of, like, you can tell he's still figuring it all out. But, man, that dude, I just wanted to say I was really impressed when I watched his stuff the other day.
The thing that impressed me the most is, I talked a little bit about Nigel Smith being a guy that clearly Crandall was just like, we're not going to let him take over the game. We're going to get rid of the ball quickly. We're going to let him, we're just going to run away from him, do everything we can to, minimize his ability to change this game. The Maid Creek game, that's who David Hicks and Pato played. They were really a well-coached team, really had a good game plan. They ended up getting housed, but it was like this game doesn't feel that far apart because it was two pretty good defenses, and the offense for Maid Creek just made a few more mistakes that really burned them a couple of times. But what impressed me about Hicks through that game is he knew pretty early on he was not going to have 3 sacks or a bunch of tackles for loss. They were just not going to let him do that. And I never once saw him get his head down or, start with that body language that we've all seen, where a guy just is not engaged in the game. There was none of that. Like his effort was constant. And I was like, that's that. I mean, and I hate to, that's a coach's kid. Like but that's what it felt like. Like he understands what's happening, what his role needs to be. And he was instrumental in that game, even if I don't know that he had maybe more than 3 tackles all night.
By the way, I'm going to Twitter for all my Bedlam news lately. Have we found out if Bedlam is affecting recruiting for OU yet, the loss of Bedlam? Stop it!
I was just glad that Eric
too busy. I haven't gotten into that particular wing of the argument, but I'm going to get there, so don't worry. It's happening.
We'll get to that in a second. Let's just wrap up the recruiting stuff as far as what we saw in Nebraska. Nebraska high school football, not so much. Not so much.
Yeah. At least the games we saw. There were some good ones Friday. We weren't there.
Yeah, it was interesting. Anyways, Malachi Coleman, I think it's pretty obvious when we were walking down the steps to get out on the field and it was like, I wonder which one he is. He's a massive, massive human.
Still working his way back from the knee.
Yeah, and I think that he was obviously a little checked out. I'm not going to necessarily just kill the kid for it. When he did catch the ball, it was very obvious why somebody would want him to be a pass catcher in their offense. I even think that, if he really wanted to and dedicated himself, he could probably turn into a pretty damn good defensive end. That's just how athletic he is. But, I mean, it is what it is. Mickey Joseph was at the game. Brian, what was the running back? Applewhite was. They were
massive
both there.
Ovation as soon as Mickey just showed up.
That was the first moment where I was like, "Oh shit, OU is in for a long day tomorrow."
Or it's or they're in for a long day to try to win this recruitment.
Sure.
It is overwhelming the support that Mickey has right now from that, or at least had last Thursday, of like how badly they're gonna want this kid to stay home.
Well, I told you guys, leaving the game, or I think I said it at the night we were there on Thursday night. Like Mickey Joseph walks into the game and he immediately gets on his cell phone. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then he starts looking up in the crowd, and I don't know this for 100% fact, but I'm pretty sure he called Coleman's parents because they were like waving at him, and they were talking on the phone, and they had like a 8-minute conversation. There's a very obvious relationship there. If you're an OU fan, I think it calms the waters. When we had the interview with him after the game, he was more than accepting to talk to us, and it's very obvious that him and Joe John have a really good relationship as well. So it's a 2-horse race in that thing, and it's going to kind of be interesting to see what Nebraska does the rest of the year. I have to think that there's going to be some pressure, just on that side of things, staying in Lincoln. I mean, his high school field was like 7 minutes away from downtown Lincoln where the stadium is. So there is going to be some pressure to stay at home. I think it would probably make it easier if, Mickey Joseph's not there, although everybody that we talked to, it's almost a given that even if he weren't to get the full-time job, he's going to be on that staff if he wants to be in some type of capacity.
But the thing is, like, if you're a new head coach, like, I mean, if they go out and hire the right guy, he's not going to want Mickey Joseph on his staff.
I don't know. But
that's where I come from.
He's going to have it's just like with Brent. He'll have so many positions filled. He'll have people, the new coach, he'll have people that he wants in there like just as analysts.
Sure.
Like Mickey Joseph will just get in the way of someone that really knows what they're doing and what they want.
Does it change it though that like he is, and I guess, the Kale situation was obviously very different and how that ended, all that kind of stuff, but he is kind of like a Nebraska, I don't want to say lifer because he hasn't, but he's a Nebraska guy. I mean, he has those connections back into the program.
But again, I mean, Brent was here before, though, so it's a different thing.
100%.
Like, you bring in Urban Meyer. I mean, they're not going to bring in Urban Meyer. I saw, what was it? Bruce Feldman had a list earlier today.
Lance Leopold,
Aranda,
the usual suspects.
Yeah, maybe you have a shot with Lance Leipold, but like Aranda and Campbell, like they're not going to have any history with Mickey Joseph.
Well, I mean, it needs to be thrown out there. Oklahoma will be looking for a wide receivers coach. Mm-hmm. He's lived in Oklahoma before. He has a kid that goes to Carl Albert, supposedly. Mickey Joseph does. So
does he? I didn't realize that.
And the thing with Coleman, I mean, if he's going to announce the 22nd, he's got to be another official visit for Kansas. He's got to be another October 15th kid. Or I'm not sure if they can get him without one more weekend to try to entice him again.
And he told us that he wants to get down.
He wants to, but we have no clue why.
Sure.
And that's the only one that obviously makes sense if he's not going to be there Saturday night because you're at TCU, you have Texas. So Kansas weekend would once again bring a top tier name.
Friday night, I don't know if there's a player that I love more in this class than
It was
Cade
a lot of fun,
McIntyre.
guys. It really was.
I just think he's a really good football player. I think it maybe inflates my idea of what he could be. Like, it's hard to judge what he is because they play Class C football in the state of Nebraska, and it's not the best brand of football. But he does what exactly you would want somebody in that position to do. Dominates on both sides of the ball.
Did not take a play off.
He's a man amongst boys. And then you throw in the idea of like what his testing numbers were when that was thrown out over the summer. It's like, okay, like I think this guy could be a somebody when it's all said and done.
I think we both came away from that night thinking, is tight end really his future? I mean, he looked good there, but
he looked great on defense,
man.
man.
Like a defensive
he just
dude.
looks home. I mean, he doesn't look home on defense because I think that he is much more comfortable playing offense, but like just the way that he attacks the football, it's like there's an instinct there. And again, he's moving a little bit faster than everybody else out there, but it looks like he could develop himself into. He kind of remind me a little bit of Austin Box, just size wise, maybe the look of what it was, just him playing linebacker. was Box 7 at Enid?
Yeah.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Then maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's exactly what it was.
And Eddie, it happens to me too. I'm like, why do I have that guy in my head? I'm like, it's the damn number.
It's hard for me to allow that comparison, though, when Box was dominating
playing
Class
quarterback.
6A.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
like the biggest classification. Like there was no 1 and 2 then.
Sure.
Like he was dominating. I mean, like it took the Jinx monster to take him down.
And he was
basically.
doing it largely. Like I remember watching that state championship game
killing
in
people on
Stillwater,
defense and
he was
making plays on offense.
Yeah, he was turning around and basically playing quarterback for Enid at the time. Maybe that's a bad comparison.
People don't realize this, but like Austin Box and Josh, I think you'll back me up. Like literally one of the greatest players in Oklahoma high school history.
I don't think that's unfair. I mean, and I've told that story before about Alan Trimble being like that dude. We had all sorts of trouble with him. And guys, I mean, Enid played Jinx in the state championship to 28-7. Like, and that's mid 2000s Jinx. Like that's a monstrously good team. They beat Owasso by 3 touchdowns. They beat Booker T that year by 3 touchdowns. Like, I mean, there is.
And wasn't Box like in that game? Wasn't he pretty beat up just because he was knocking the shit out of people everywhere?
He had that big elbow thing.
Yeah, the big elbow brace was on. Yeah.
Yep. Like I said, that was that, and I mean that Enid team. Don't get me wrong; they had some decent players, and they around that time they did have a few players, and obviously Cody Cook was that same senior class and signed with OU as an offensive lineman, but. I mean, without Austin, that's barely a playoff team.
Yeah.
And he took them all the way to state finals, and they were fairly game for Jinx.
I'm not saying that, you're slandering the man or anything.
No, he just
that's a high bar to live up to as Austin Box in high school.
Sure.
And going back to K, Joe John was there in attendance, saw all 3 touchdowns. He stayed the entire first half. I was really waiting for him, like, all right, I've seen what I need to do.
got better things to do.
Exactly, but he stayed the entire time. And shout out Josh and Lori McIntyre. We really enjoyed.
Oh, they were great.
Yes, they were terrific.
I love my time in Fremont. I might go back to Fremont, Nebraska at some point.
And you took Bob by the
Bob went to the boardroom. I took him by on Friday afternoon before.
He had tears going down his eyes, just thinking.
And Bob thought I was lying about the spearmint rhino.
Spearmint rhino.
There is a spearmint rhino
right across the street.
I had no idea.
100%.
That's why the expense report was so high.
I'm not going.
Trip.
I never went. I had a chance to on one of the nights. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but there were some former OU athletes that had invited me over there that apparently stayed very, very late, like early morning the next day. And I was glad that I didn't because I think it was the night. It was like the Friday night going into the first game of the World Series.
So when you say former OU athletes, not necessarily football players.
They were not football
players.
They might have had interest in being up there because they might have competed in the same program. But it was good to get back to Omaha, my second home.
Oh, it really has become. Okay, so I think Eddie and I kind of feel the same way about the whole Bedlam thing. At least we're in the same ballpark.
I truly think this is about to be my final time to comment on it.
Yes.
Because I'm sick of talking
it.
about it. It shouldn't have been in the news cycle yesterday because it's not news. We knew this day was going to come.
The only thing that advanced it was a quote from Joe Castiglione.
Bingo.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Like that's purely what it was?
Yeah.
I get where they're coming from, like Oklahoma State side of things. Like I understand it. I think it's pettiness on both sides. In a perfect world, I would want Bedlam to be played. I love the game. I love the rivalry. It is a rivalry. I love everything about it. I love the fact that people don't call it a rivalry. That to me makes it a rivalry. Like all the above. It saddens me that we're not going to have that game anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think it was petty until yesterday when Mike Gundy brought out the notes.
Notes.
Yeah.
I was just,
I don't know.
It's like Anchorman. He wasn't ready to play jazz flute.
And it was also a captive audience. He's like, you tell me where I'm wrong. He's like, they're not going to tell you, they're not going to debate you. Like, there was some debatable stuff that he said.
I don't know. I had
wasn't
Robert
gonna
Allen stepping up for OU in this case.
Well, guys, like it's the thing that OSU keeps going back to. They followed Texas. You know what that looks like. You know you're saying that to piss people off. Like, don't act like you're
And that's the card they should
fray
play,
here.
though, isn't it?
I'm fine with that. That's fine. Like, you don't get to, like, take that little shitty shot and then be like, but we're above this. This is childish.
We're not about money. That's the other thing, too. It's like chasing the money. It's like, you would go too. If the SEC wanted you, you would leave tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you know if they were in OU situation? Do you know what their stadium would be called? SEC Stadium, because they are about the money. They named it after a guy who gave them a shit ton of money. Like, that's not new. Like, it's no big deal. It's fine to acknowledge that you would do what OU is doing, and at the same time, you can be mad about it. Like, I get both sides of that. That's okay. But guys, the thing I struggle with, and I saw one person say it. Do you honestly, like, I've seen nothing and heard nothing that tells me OU doesn't want to continue this.
Yeah, I agree. I think OU would like to make, because I think they don't want to look like the bad guys here.
Agreed.
Which they clearly do, and OSU is helping. Just helping. They're like bad. Just poking the bear. Like, see, he's bad. He's bad. Watch him fight. Watch him get mad. We're poking him. Look, he's gonna swing at you. Get ready, because he's a bad person. Like, they're just poking OU over and over. Like. They would rather it be, even if it wasn't, every year. Like, I think OU would be willing to say, like, okay, we'll play twice every 5 years. Or so. I mean, for God's sakes, you've got Tulsa on your schedule for like 3 years in a row, OSU. I mean,
and can we stop with the schedule's just full for the next 10 years? Yeah, you've never canceled with Murray State before. Knock that shit off. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop with that. And they're like, well, there's cancellation rights. Yeah, I'm sure Murray State's going to come back pissed if they have to wait a year for their $1 million payday.
Murray State will go away if you just pay for their practice uniforms next year.
Yeah, like, guys, they have and that's it. Like, the other weak part of that argument is, okay, then why don't you announce, hey, we're going to play OU at a home and home in 2033? Like, you're clearly willing to schedule it out that far. Schedule it. Like, you don't
be
get
petty
to live
about
under
it.
that.
Like, we're going to schedule OU in 2033. It's just unfortunate that we won't be able to play sooner. Like,
yeah. Like, and that's the thing. Like,
because of their
OSU
move,
people say,
because of them leaving the Big 12 conference.
OSU people keep like, it's OU's bluffing. Then call their bluff. If that's what it is, if they're trying to look like the White Knight, call their bluff, and then you do get to do what Carrie just talked about. You get to make them the asshole. Like, that's an easy fix.
But here's the thing, too. Like to me, everybody's out there playing checkers. Like, I think OSU is playing chess. Like, I think OSU is like, well, the SEC doesn't really want us right now, but what if we stir all this stuff up and make OU out to be the bad guy, and then if the SEC reacts to the Big Ten expanding, maybe OU will go to bat for us because they're tired of looking bad, like they did something wrong here.
Is there any truth to Joe Harris and Dr. Shrum not particularly liking each other?
I don't know. I heard
that
know.
yesterday. I have no idea. I don't know how they would ever have had their paths cross.
He's a lawyer. She's a doctor.
Yeah, I really don't know.
Is she a doctor, or is she a doctor?
I think it's like a
academic doctor,
like an academic, a fake doctor. It just is there
not a medical doctor? How about that? Is she a medical doctor, or is she a
school doctor?
A school doctor. Yeah.
Doctor. Is there a certain element though too that they can't come out and say this, but does it benefit either school to play that game as it stands now?
I said this morning it's a win for both schools.
To not play the game?
Yeah, OSU doesn't have to get beat, 11 out of 12 years. And OU just doesn't have to mess with it because they're in the SEC now, and they can schedule.
From an OU scheduling standpoint, if you're going to play.
It's bad for the fans.
The SEC. Sure.
It's bad for the fans. No matter what, it's bad. I'm just saying, for the universities, it's a win-win.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the fans are the ones that seem to fight against it. That's what I was talking about this morning on there. Like, these people are like, it's not a stop with it's not a rivalry, like, because it's lopsided. Like, guys, you look back on it. The last 20 years, not Texas, not anybody has created as fun and consistently great game to watch as OU OSU. Like, I think there's few rivalries in the country that have matched it over the last 20 years. Just a lot, like so many fun, like crazy, wild-ass games, and people acting like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. What? I mean, what does if that doesn't? I'm not saying it's Ohio State, Michigan, or Auburn, Alabama, but it's a really good rivalry game that continues to be compelling year over year.
And the crazy thing is, with all that said, they've won twice in the last decade.
Yeah.
No.
Which is insane to think about. I mean, obviously, and it shouldn't be one.
And the circumstances are, one was a punt return.
The repunt.
The repunt. And the other was a coaching staff that was halfway out the door.
Yeah.
Literally left the team at halftime.
2 months,
going to
2 months
LSU.
before.
Well, yeah.
Not even at that game. It was 2 months before.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know.
I mean, the whole thing is just, it's fantastic because it is made for basically the loss of Bedlam is made for Bedlam because fans for OSU can answer, they can fight for their point and feel like they are 100% right. OU fans can fight for their side and they feel they're 100% right. They both have points and counterpoints that just bounce off of each other and go right back to the other side. It's like a game of breakout or Pong or whatever. Like, no matter what you say, you can just keep saying it, but louder. Which is OU wants to play, OSU won't do it. And OSU is, they let this game get away when they left for the SEC, chasing the money and like it's a never ending. Like, literally, Facebook or Twitter has turned into a Facebook group over this.
No, it's incredibly depressing. I mean, and the other thing too is it's just ironic that we're weeks removed from West Virginia and Pittsburgh playing, and that atmosphere being awesome.
That
at
was an
Heinz
awesome
Field.
game to watch.
And everybody's like, "Why haven't these guys played in 9-10 years? Rivalries are awesome."
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, this isn't a rivalry. It's like I tweeted yesterday. It's like some of my best friends are Oklahoma State fans, and that weekend is awesome, even though the outcome has likely, we kind of know what it's going to be, but just the fact and like that fear of having to see your neighbor the next day or see the coworker on Monday, that's what makes a rivalry to me. It's not the head-to-head.
Now it's just going to be a rivalry of words. It's like, if we played you, we'd beat you this year.
Yep.
Yeah, and that,
Like, and you don't have to back anything up.
And
It's
we're
just
never
all
wrong.
talk.
We're
Yeah.
never wrong.
We've been making fun of Texas A&M and Texas fans for doing this for the last however many years they haven't played. Now, is it also my understanding too that they're going to try and play in other sports?
I would think
just
that they would.
football
Yeah.
that is being directly affected by this.
As far as I know, yes.
I could see basketball being maybe hit and miss. I don't know if Moser and Boynton like each other. I don't know.
seem
about
like they
that.
do on
They seem like
social
they do,
media.
but I don't.
Put it to Paycom.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. That would be cool. Anytime that you don't have to play
Because
the
you can't do a
godforsaken
home
Lloyd
and
Noble
home.
Center.
In a way, it would make it a little bit more like, the 80s, the old days, because the minor sports mattered more then than they do now. Like, the Thunder came into town, and really the basketball thing hasn't been that big of a deal. But if you're only playing once and you put it at Paycom or you put it at BOK or you alternate
cool.
it year to year, like, people would get jacked up for that.
Baseball needs to stay for sure.
Yeah.
Softball needs to stay for sure. They need to.
You'll play a
some type of Ryder
3-game
Cup between the golf
series.
teams.
Yeah, baseball will be a 3-game series. The 5 thing will go away.
Oh yeah, well it'll probably be the midweek stuff is how they would play, and because the 3-game will go
You
away
could
because
do
they're
it
not in the
before
same
conference
conference.
play starts.
Yeah, you could for sure.
Wrestling OU will have to do something with wrestling.
Well,
I don't
that's
know.
not a rivalry. They need to stop playing because OU never wins.
OU does never win that. Yeah.
So they should stop that.
They
That's
probably should.
I will tell you that's.
I'm
now
just saying,
facetiously saying
OU
it, but-
has to find a conference because the
Exact-
SEC doesn't have
yes.
wrestling. So I would imagine the Big 12 will
Oh,
keep
that's right. I didn't even think
OU.
about that.
Missouri's in the Big 12.
Yeah, I
in
didn't even think about
wrestling.
that. So is Northern Colorado.
So is North Dakota and Fresno State.
Yep.
Sometimes I see
There,
that stuff.
there
and
are
I'm like,
some
what?
random wrestling
Yeah.
programs.
I think Denver is in the Big 12 in gymnastics or something.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
they are.
And pretty good, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
So, with gymnastics, it's one of those sports where there's like They're like, I think maybe 40 competing teams. So like, it's not hard to be in, like, they're number 24. Yeah, but what does that mean? Like, you wonder a little bit about that, but I don't know. So there's my gymnastics talk for this week.
I think the Southwest Conference is still alive, and it's all rowing teams or something. It's not like OU is like in the Sun Belt and the Big 12 in rowing or something like that. It's all bizarre when you get into those minor sports.
I know that's like out there on the board and stuff. I have heard as well that you're supposed to be wearing alternates this weekend. I'm the last person that would have any like comment on if they're cool or if they're not. I always like the 2003 North Texas throwback uniforms that they wore. That's not really an
nice
alt uniform though.
Yep. And
if it's anthracite, I mean,
I don't even know what that's supposed to
you
look
going
like.
out in all black without preparing the fans is not all black, but some black.
It'd be like it's like a grayish
gray,
I don't even know how to.
graphite type.
Well, but it's black. I mean, it's
I don't know
just
if
a very dark
I don't know.
gray,
The
charcoaly.
basketball games come off black when they wear them.
They do, yeah.
They do that. Okay.
But I mean, that would people are gonna have a real problem with that if that really is what happens.
Well, if they win, 60-3, they'll get over it.
If they lose, they'll
I would
have to
imagine
burn them.
Like
well,
2014 Baylor.
Those people will be bitching about the lights anyway. So what's it matter? They won't be able to see them.
We'll be seeing double and it'll be blinking.
No, you mean 2009 Tech, right? That was the Nike Combat.
Yeah, the combat.
That's the ones people never wanted to see again because they played like crap. But
That was the
those
Ryan
were
Broyles game.
fantastic alternate uniforms.
I was in Lubbock that day, but I spent half of, more than half. I spent 3/4 of the game just outside at the Tech tailgate hazing people, and that was fun.
God, I would have thought that you were working for us in 2009 for some reason.
I was out there.
You were still in school, yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't compare to the Lubbock trip when we stayed at the Stadium Motel in 2006.
Oh boy,
that was the big.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, that was the big one. Hit a deer on the way back in Wichita Falls with Britt Banowski's
like a
car.
brand new Audi.
Yeah, Britt Banowski, brand new Audi. It's kind of a blah weekend in the college football world. Arkansas A&M is going to be a little bit interesting over at Jerry World this weekend.
We get to watch Baylor and Cyclones early.
Baylor and Iowa State. You would
11.
think that. I don't know.
I don't know what to expect in that game.
Exactly.
I don't know
think
what to
Iowa
expect
State-
from a lot of Big 12 teams. Texas, I don't know if that does anything for anybody, but I did like when we signed off the postgame show, it's 17-7 down in Austin, and I was like, there they are. That's the usual Texas. But they played well in the second half. They played really well in the second half.
They got
for
Bijan
Mid Pairs.
involved.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really good win for them to go win by 21 against, I'm not, UTSA is UTSA, but I think they're a nice football team.
They had a pick six late in the third, late in the third, I think it was. Yeah, they kind of helped them pull away.
Is it true that did Quinn Ewers practice this week? Is that thing coming together a little bit longer?
That's what
better than I think.
That's what
initially
Sark
thought?
said on Monday.
I guess that'll be more interesting here as we move forward into
Texas-
obviously TCU week next week, and then the big one the week after.
Texas is just the land of quick healing quarterbacks, I guess. Dak Prescott and Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a broken thumb and an AC joint. I don't know.
I mean, the AC joint is a serious injury. Like, it's not like come back in 2 weeks.
Sam did try to come back though after, and it was about the same timeline.
Yeah.
The opener and then Texas.
Yeah, that's true. Didn't work out too well, unfortunately.
You're
You should
sick.
see
You're a
the
sick- you're a
look that
sick
Eddie
person.
has right now.
Like what? He got hurt again. It's not like I'm not.
He did.
I'm not.
Quinn
twisting the
probably will
knife.
too if they rush it.
Well, Oklahoma would not be the team you'd want to come back against because they're going to get in the backfield.
You would think that the pressure that the defensive line's putting up right now it's going to be an interesting matchup. OU's defensive line against Texas's offensive line here in a couple
Which that's
weeks.
been the surprising thing about Texas to me is their offensive line has not been terrible.
No, they played really, really well against Alabama, all things considered.
Yeah.
Everything held up.
Guys, in a lot of ways, did that game tell you more about Texas than the Bama game did? Like, I've seen Texas play good
Yes.
against teams that they weren't as good as.
Yes.
But to get down early, That's the kind of game Texas would have lost. Like we talked about OU, the Kent State game. OU would have let them hang around. It would have been interesting late. That's the kind of game Texas would have lost the last 3 or 4 years. Like they would have screwed that whole thing up. But to come back and just kind of blitz UTSA in the second half, I'm not saying that, they're back or anything like that, but that's a step in the right direction for them.
I think Texas Tech is kind of a bottom tier team. Donovan Smith's an okay quarterback unless they're going to
pick 6 in the last two games.
Like if you go to Lubbock and you do that again this weekend, I'm going to say, okay, this is something you can work with out of Austin. And I don't know, I'm getting really, really excited for the Cotton Bowl, obviously, but just kind of how the entire Big 12 shapes up here over the next couple of weeks, because I think we'll have a better idea again at the end of this run with Oklahoma as they start conference play, and particularly starting on Saturday night. I think it's going to be fairly interesting to see just how well if Oklahoma can continue to do it again, because again I feel like it's a little PTSD that I'm just waiting for something bad to happen.
That's going to be something that OU fans just are going to live with all year.
Which is kind of fun. I guess it's kind of like,
especially with someone like Deuce Vaughn, who's done it to them before.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think it is with like K-State. There is this little bit of a, okay, like they've done this before. Right? Remember in 2020 they were coming, and I know it was weird because of COVID, but they were coming in off of the loss against Missouri State.
Yep.
So they're backs against the wall. That's usually how you see a team respond. The most dangerous team is a team with their back against the wall. So we'll see.
7:00 Saturday night, Kansas State. That guarantees one thing, which is Josh will not be on the post-game pod.
He won't even start till like 3 a.m.
Oh, I know. It's a life we live.
To do it, I'd basically be up for 24 straight hours, because I can almost guarantee I will not get back till about 2:30 in the morning from the game I'll be at.
Where are you going?
So yes, you're right. Probably, it looks like I'm going to go over to Austin. Probably going to go get to see a kind of cool one. Maybe get to see Westlake and Lake Travis.
Ooh,
that's a yeah. So that
they're
could
playing
be pretty
on
fun.
Saturday night.
Would be my first time at that one. No, they're playing Friday night,
Okay.
but I wouldn't get in until Saturday morning. Yeah, it'd be 24 hours by the time you guys start recording.
Oh, okay.
So
I still
that's going to be a no
make
for
any
me.
sense to me, but
because you're not going to go to sleep when you get home.
I get in.
I know. I was like, okay, so what? You're going to be at 24? What? No.
Oh, well, you're right. I'd get about 3 hours of sleep. I apologize. That 3 hours will have me fresh and ready.
Well,
but we'll see.
A soccer game at 6 a.m.?
Odds are not. I get up at 6 a.m., brother. I don't.
You can sleep but you have a late night. Yeah. We have to.
I get it. I'll be up Saturday morning as well.
Carrie, my entire family could leave my house.
I'm going to tell you right now, you can keep talking, but no one in this room agrees that you're going down a positive road right now with your explanation.
I'll tell you right now, I'm playing in the Chipping Club tournament on Friday. Coming for that ass, Brad Dahlke. Coming for that ass. Max McGreevy, better watch out. We got a team. I know that you guys have put together your little professional golfer team.
Whatever.
All I need is a couple strokes.
Noted.
That's it.
Okay.
I'm done.
All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back again after the game for the post-game podcast, the Eskridge Lexus post-game podcast. So thanks to Dead Soxy. Thanks to PrimeShrimp.com. Great sponsors of the program. And got another sponsor coming up quickly. So we'll let you know about that here in the next week or so. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.